In the uproarious and surprisingly heartfelt comedy, No Hard Feelings, the narrative follows the chaotic journey of Maddie, a woman on the brink of losing everything, who takes on an unconventional job to boost the confidence of an awkward teenager named Percy. What begins as a desperate attempt to secure fast cash quickly spirals into a series of wild situations as Maddie and Percy navigate this unusual arrangement, challenging their perceptions of love, relationships, and the true meaning of growing up. This film is a roller coaster ride of humor and emotion, leaving both characters and the audience forever changed. The story starts with Gary, a tow truck driver, arriving at Maddie Barker's home to repossess her car. Maddie, who had a past romantic relationship with Gary until she suddenly cut off contact, tries to appeal to his emotions. However, her efforts are interrupted by a man from a casual encounter the previous night who appears in his underwear and makes inappropriate advances despite her protests. Gary tows the car away, and Maddie, being an Uber driver, puts on rollerblades to catch up with him, halting when he stops to buy breakfast. She attempts to lower the car and drive off, but the vehicle remains attached to the truck. In a clumsy attempt, she tries to disengage the car only for Gary to raise it back up again. Maddie faces probation due to her previous actions and receives a notice about a large amount of back taxes owed, which puts her house in Montauk at risk. Montauk is where she has lived her entire life. In addition to being a tow truck driver, Maddie works as a bartender by the water, collaborating with her friend Sarah and spending time with Sarah and her husband Jim. Maddie's boss comments on her aggressive attitude after she argues with a customer who tries to order a drink before the bar's official opening. During their break, Sarah presents Maddie with a job advertisement from an affluent family seeking a companion for their son prior to his departure for college. In exchange, they offer a Buick Regal as compensation. Although Maddie recognizes that the term companion suggests a sexual relationship, she consents to the arrangement due to her lack of alternatives. Additionally, she perceives an opportunity to exploit the wealthy family, whom she holds responsible for the potential loss of her home. Upon arriving at the Becker household, Maddie meets the parents, Laird and Allison, who discuss their son Percy, describing him as socially awkward and introverted with a penchant for video games. Despite their initial preference for someone closer to Percy's age, Maddie persuades them that she is the ideal candidate for the position. However, Laird and Allison stress that Percy must remain unaware of their agreement. They instruct Maddie to locate Percy at the dog shelter, where he is employed. Dressed in a fitted dress, Maddie attempts to win him over by feigning interest in adopting a dog. Percy introduces her to Milo, a former police dog with a troubled past involving cocaine addiction. Percy feels uncomfortable with Maddie's forwardness, leading him to consider leaving early. Nevertheless, Maddie proposes driving him home in Jim's van. Upon arriving at her residence, Percy reacts by spraying mace at her, causing her distress. Maddie then clarifies that she was attracted to him, which prompts Percy to ask for a genuine date. Maddie agrees to his request. Later, she returns Jim's van and describes Percy as unattractive while recounting the events to Jim and Sarah. Subsequently, Maddie takes Percy to a bar where she is acquainted with a member of the waitstaff and orders him a Long Island iced tea, despite his dislike for the drink. Travis, another individual, arrives and discloses that he previously had a romantic involvement with Maddie. Displaying his wedding ring, he asserts that Maddie's decision to end their relationship was beneficial and cautions Percy against becoming too emotionally invested in her. Subsequently, Maddie meets Percy at the beach for a session of skinny dipping. Despite Percy's initial reluctance, Maddie convinces him to participate. Shortly thereafter, 3 inebriated teenagers appear and steal their clothes, which contain their wallets, mobile phones, and keys. Consequently, Maddie emerges from the water completely unclothed and confronts the teenagers in an effort to reclaim their belongings. After a brief struggle, she successfully retrieves their items. Upon returning to the water, Percy remarks on Maddie's actions, implying that something is amiss. This prompts Maddie to contemplate leaving, but Percy, still without clothing, insists on recovering his phone. In response, he climbs onto the hood of Maddie's vehicle. Undeterred, Maddie accelerates, resulting in a thrilling ride with Percy clinging to the hood. The police notice them and initiate a chase, causing Maddie to worry about the repercussions for her driving privileges. She speeds up and expertly navigates across a railroad track just before an approaching train, allowing them to evade the police. In a renewed effort to win Percy over, Maddie invites him to her home, where she attempts to entice him with a suggestive dance, encouraging him to join her. However, her intentions shift when she notices a rash on his back, which she attributes to his anxiety. He begins to open up about his past, revealing how his friends mocked him for sleeping in his parents' bedroom and for fabricating stories about his sexual experiences. His hesitance to engage socially is evident. While Maddie applies lotion to his back, she recounts an awkward experience she had with Percy. Maddie receives a visit from her former classmate, Dokun, who is now a realtor, and expresses his desire to sell her house at its full market value. Maddie, however, declines his proposal, resolute in her efforts to preserve the home. Subsequently, Percy asks Maddie out on a proper date, which she happily accepts. They enjoy themselves at an arcade, winning prizes until they are asked to leave after Maddie playfully teases a young child. Their next stop is the lighthouse, where Percy gathers the courage to request a kiss from Maddie. Despite his slight awkwardness, she consents, and they share a tender moment. During their discussion, Maddie reveals that she has never ventured beyond Montauk and has remained in her family home with her mother. She explains that her father provided them with the house and some financial support to prevent any disruption to his new family. Later, they visit Jody, Percy's former male nanny. Jody notices something peculiar about Maddie, but playfully jests about the unusual situation of a grown man serving as a nanny for a teenage boy. Later, Maddie and Percy dine at an upscale restaurant, creating their own version of a prom date to compensate for missing their respective proms, during which they discover Percy's talent for playing the piano. During their discussion, Maddie encourages Percy to display his abilities. Gaining newfound confidence, he steps onto the stage to perform the song Man-Eater. The entire restaurant becomes captivated by his performance, which elicits cheers and applause from the audience. Maddie, taken aback, finds herself genuinely impressed. A fellow student named Natalia approaches Percy, praising his performance and mentioning her plans to attend Princeton in the upcoming fall. Netley extends an invitation to Percy for a gathering of prospective Princeton students. In response, Maddie attempts to dissuade him from going, voicing her concerns that he might develop romantic feelings for Natalia or another young woman. Despite Maddie's apprehensions, Percy remains determined to attend the event. He arrives at the party in a limousine, with Maddie soon following, searching for him among a crowd of pretentious teenagers who regard her presence as incongruous due to her age. After a thorough search, Maddie discovers Percy in a compromising situation next to Natalia. Unfortunately, Percy is in a poor state, having fallen ill from consuming alcohol and ibuprofen. Maddie quickly intervenes to assist him by inducing vomiting. Their efforts are interrupted when the host's parents arrive, and in an attempt to protect Maddie, request that she leave. Once they exit the party, Percy inadvertently punches Maddie in the throat. Nevertheless, he expresses his readiness to engage in a sexual encounter with Maddie in the limousine. However, upon confessing his love for her, Maddie realizes he is too intoxicated and decides against proceeding. Later, Laird and Allison observe Percy's newfound enthusiasm and sociability, which he attributes to his recent romantic involvement. Percy reveals to his friends that he has altered his plans and will not be attending Princeton, opting instead to remain near Maddie. Concerned for her, Allison reaches out to Maddie, who is currently wrestling with uncertainties regarding her job commitment. Laird comforts Maddie, assuring her that she can retain the car without needing to maintain their relationship, hoping this will dissuade Percy from abandoning his Princeton aspirations. Regrettably, while seated in his parents' vehicle, Percy inadvertently activates the audio system and overhears their discussion. During this unintended eavesdropping, he learns of Maddie's decision to keep the car without pursuing a romantic relationship, which leaves him feeling profoundly hurt and disheartened. Percy invites Maddie to lunch with his parents, but during the meal he begins to consume their wine and adopts a passive-aggressive demeanor. Subsequently, he collaborates with his friend Crispin to execute a scheme involving the Buick. They drive the car into the woods where they sabotage it by placing a rock on the gas pedal, resulting in a collision with a tree. The collision causes the tree to fall onto the vehicle, In an effort to move past their issues, Percy and Maddie decide to engage in sexual relations upon returning to the house. However, before he can fully participate, Percy prematurely ejaculates on her thigh. Frustrated, he declares that he has gained clarity and no longer wishes to see Maddie, predicting that she will spend the remainder of her life in Montauk. Later, Gary delivers the damaged Buick to Maddie, as her name is on the paperwork. Consequently, she is compelled to continue her Uber work using the now impaired vehicle. While Percy isolates himself in his room, engrossed in video games and ignoring Maddie's messages and calls, Maddie eventually manages to save enough money to repair her car and settle her tax obligations. Maddie joins Jim and Sarah in a moment of celebration. However, their happiness is fleeting when Jim and Sarah reveal their intention to relocate to Florida in anticipation of their new baby. Consumed by disappointment, Maddie comes to terms with the reality of her impending solitude. Accepting this situation, she reaches out to Doe and agrees to accept his assistance in selling her house. Maddie transfers the property to Jim and Sarah, providing them with a home to nurture their child, while she begins to prepare for her own relocation to California. Upon discovering that Percy will be attending a gathering at Princeton, Maddie resolves to seek him out. Nevertheless, Percy continues to disregard her attempts to communicate, refusing to engage as she tries to share her perspective. In a surprising turn reminiscent of their previous encounter, Maddie climbs onto the hood of his car, prompting Percy to drive off with her, still holding on. Their unanticipated journey along the coastline leads to an incident where Maddie inadvertently catches fire from a nearby barbecue grill. The chaotic adventure culminates with Percy driving the car into the water, bringing their tumultuous experience to a dramatic end. In a state of panic, Percy frantically searches for Maddie until they finally exchange heartfelt apologies. Following their emotional reconciliation, Maddie discloses her plans to move to California, a decision that Percy wholeheartedly supports. He reassures her that, despite the challenges they faced, he considers their intimate experience a significant milestone in his life. On the day Percy is set to leave for Princeton, he prepares his luggage and bids farewell to Laird and Allison. To his astonishment, Maddie arrives, offering to drive him to his destination before embarking on her own trip to California. In a further unexpected turn, Maddie introduces Milo, a new companion in her life, which leaves Percy in a state of surprise. The film wraps up on this touching moment. Thank you for watching, and don't forget subscribe and Hello Recaps.